So my inspiration about cooking is really just taking Mother Nature's ingredients and really just highlighting them. I am seafood focused. I grew up fishing in Long Island, with my family. So I do gravitate towards like really taking things out of the ocean and making them shine the best. Just like our king crab we have in the menu here. Live flown in from Norway, keeping it as super fresh as possible while elevating and highlighting it, such as adding like this mustard seed oil, light herbs. It's really making that ingredient pop. So when we approached to do wet, we wanted to take things from the ocean that are really big, bold, and wow, but also how we can just elevate. If you look at Miami's dining, there's a lot of show without the flavor to back it up. A lot of inspiration goes into how can we take the best without destroying it, still letting it be what it is. And that, a lot of that goes back to my background. I spent most of my career, staging in 3-star Michelin restaurants. They're all ingredient driven, and that's always stuck to me and helped me define my cuisine. So one of, I think, my signature dishes here at Wet is our lobster pappardelle. We have this beautiful pasta extruder here, and I source lobster tamale. Some people call it roe. So we take that and we put that into the pasta dough, and it turns the dough a really dark, not so pleasant looking green. And because the extruder warms up, when it's extruding it, it actually starts cooking it. And so it goes from green dough out the extruder to this light orangey noodle. We're using this Carrera Wagyu out of Australia, braising that for 6 hours so it's really tender, taking that cooking liquid, emulsifying that with a tarragon butter. Unlike your typical, everybody does a filet and a lobster tail, this is taking the two ingredients and really combining them and making them just pop. So our salmon crudo here, so we're taking koji and we're curing the salmon for about 6 hours. So we're taking these candied kumquats, we're making a salad of pickled cucumbers, avocado, mizuna, smoked oil, lemon oil, and then this -8 vinegar. And just taking that, putting that on the plate, and each bite you get a little bit of the salad, a little bit of the salmon, and it just elevates that fish. I tell a lot of young chefs that when they're starting out in their career, really just put your head down, stop worrying about titles. If you can, don't worry about the money too much. The money will always come, the titles will always come. Learn as much as you can, and I did that. And most of my career was spent working a full-time job and then staging it full-time, just learning and absorb as much knowledge on cuisine as you can, and then the rest will come.
I love cooking with pork because it's so versatile. You can braise it, sear it, grill it. It does very well with imparting flavors. You can get all kinds of different textures. Braised pork belly can be nice and soft. You can braise cushion or shoulder and get this like meaty texture but still melts in your mouth. I think it's one of the most versatile cooking ingredients out there. This is my pork rillette tartine. I take the Chairman Reserve pork cushion and pork belly and I braise it low and slow with some cold brew that we make in-house. We just braise that till it's super tender and fall apart. The pork cushion adds some backbone to the rillette, so there's some nice meatiness and texture to counteract with the fat of the pork belly. Then we whip it with shallots and whole grain mustard, lemon, a little bit of chili flake, and then we serve that on top of a house-made toasted sourdough, pickled green strawberries, a little bit of mustard frill, and then a bacon crumble, or something that I like to call the ultimate bacon bits. I love this tartine because it's not the typical rillette that's used, and I love the flavor that gets added using cold brew to braise it. Creates a really umami, rich flavor mixed into there. This is the pork shank adobo. I take the Chairman Reserve pork shank, and once I debone it, I trim it down, and I braise it in a mixture of soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, garlic, a little bit of chili. To pair with this pork shank, I made a garlic fried rice, taking Calrose rice that was cooked and then dried overnight, fried that in a little bit of olive oil. This is an ode to my grandmother. She was born in Manila, came to the United States, and one of the things I miss the most about her is her making chicken adobo and pork adobo for us. One of those childhood memories, the few times I was able to have it with her, that always stuck with me, and I always try to pay tribute to that in my cooking in some way, shape, or form. This is my slow-cooked pork cushion. I take the Chairman Reserve pork cushion, I trim it down so that it's more uniform, and then I sous vide it overnight. And then I take it, sear it until it's crispy, baste it with some butter, garlic, and thyme. Make sure that skin's nice and crispy and aromatic. Served with some white beans, English peas, and Parmesan. Take those English peas, make like a pesto out of it, and then use that pesto to coat the beans as well as to mix in with the ham broth. I love cooking with pork because it's so versatile. You can braise it, sear it, grill it. It does very well with imparting flavors, but once you slow cook it, it has that meaty texture, but also has those like real fatty layers in between it. I think the pork cushion's a really underutilized cut of meat that a lot of chefs don't use, or maybe they just don't know about. It's not very common, but you can coax a lot of really cool flavors, a lot of really cool textures out of it. Take the Chairman Reserve pork cushion and slow braise it with barbecue sauce and aromatics. It adds a nice smokiness to the pork, really tenderizes it and gives it a nice richness and sweetness to it. Make sure it's nice and glazed, and I serve it with a soft yellow corn polenta, and all of that is topped with a cornbread gremolata mixed in with green garlic from our farmer's market. All this works great together. It's a bit of an ode to a summer backyard barbecue, taking pork ribs or barbecue sauce and serving it with grilled corn. Really light, summery, fun flavors. I take the Chairman Reserve pork shank and I sear it whole until it's nice and crispy, and then I braise it with a mixture of spices and chilies. It's important to slowly braise this pork shank with the chili colorado sauces and spices so that it really infuses all the way to the bone and really helps to break down and be soft but yet chewy in the middle. I really want to do an ode to my grandmother on my mother's side. She used to make this version of this dish a lot growing up, and it always reminded me of gathering around her dining room table with my cousins and my family and just eating this all together. So I take it out after it's been braised, pull it apart, add all the accoutrements, and serve some tortillas on the side. And then just for families and friends just to dive in together and make their own tacos and just eat this thing all together. And you eat it with the pickled onions and serranos and jalapenos, a little bit of cotija for some fattiness. Eating that on a fresh tortilla really just adds this real melt in your mouth, mouthfeel, and something that I believe is really reminiscent, at least of my childhood.
My cooking style is definitely comforting, rustic, something my grandma will cook. Southern style biscuit from Pillsbury's are perfect as a substitution for cakes. In this case, a strawberry shortcake. I made macerated strawberries, slicing some fresh strawberries, mixing it with sugar, a little bit of vanilla, and then I did a chantilly cream. I've used the strawberries and the southern style together as a perfect combo that has the little tang from the fruit and from the biscuits. I started my corn chowder by mixing leeks, onions, shallots with a little bit of butter, sauteing the veggies, added fresh sweet corn to it, let it cook down. I made a dark roux and added to the veggies to make my chowder nice and rich. I took a southern style biscuit from Pillsbury, straight from the freezer to cook. The biscuits were a perfect pairing for the chowder because it's such a classic combination, having chewy and warm biscuits combined with a rich corn chowder. For the ham salad sandwich, I used tomatoes, onions, lemon juice, a little bit of mayo, Dijon mustard, and chopped ham. I took the cheddar and garlic biscuits from Pillsbury, straight from the freezer, and after baked, they looked exactly like handmade. I love this sandwich because it's a great contrast between a warm biscuit and a cold salad. Super refreshing and super easy to make. So I made a spread using creme fraiche, chives, and everything bagel seasoning. I spread it over pre-baked golden buttermilk biscuit from Pillsbury that were nice and warm out of the oven. And then I placed the lox on top of it and topped with a little bit more of the spread. So buttermilk and lox go super well together. Their flavors complement each other. It's a great way of pairing with salmon. Fried chicken and golden buttermilk biscuit from Pillsbury are made for each other. So I breaded the chicken with a mixture of panko and breadcrumbs and seasoned the chicken with hot sauce, paprika, garlic powder, and some Old Bay. I deep fried the chicken until it's perfectly crispy and paired this with the golden buttermilk biscuit. The easy split is super convenient, have a rich buttermilk taste, and they're just like homemade.